Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for those of you who are in Asia. Suppose it's too early for those who are in America. South Asia Democratic Forum is now producing a new webinar. The webinar is titled Caste in India, its past, present, and future in the regional and global context. And it will be animated by two speakers. The first speaker is going to be Dr. Shyam Babu. He is a senior fellow at the Center for Policy Research, New Delhi. He is an author of several works, namely Defying the Odds. And then we will have Dr. Jason Fernandez. He is a researcher at the Center for Research in Anthropology in Lisbon, and he is joining us from Rome. I am in Brussels, and hopefully everyone can get us in the best of the conditions. After the initial speeches from our speakers, we will have a question and answer period. So I give now the floor to Dr. Shyam Babu. Please, you are very much welcome to speak, and thank you very much for accepting to participate in our webinar.
Thank you, Paulo. Dear friends, greetings to all of you. To begin with, I would like to thank Dr. Paulo Casaca, Executive Director, South Asia Democratic Forum, and his colleague, Ms. Hana Madatali, for extending this invitation to me. Let me also thank my friend, Professor Devesh Kapoor at the Johns Hopkins University, who is instrumental in bringing me in contact with Paulo. So during the 15 minutes or so I have been given, I will structure my presentation around social cognition. What I mean by social cognition is how a group of people or a society is conditioned through culture, religion, habits, and routines to think, react, and behave in an expected way, as if that particular group or the village, if you will, has a collective mind. You don't need an elaborate institutional mechanism to maintain social order, be it caste or race or even gender. And it is transmitted, say, from father to son, from mother to daughter. First, I'll give you a brief introduction to caste, its meaning, its origins, and its complexity, and as well as why it is so resilient. Then I will talk about social cognition with regard to caste. Before concluding, I will spend a couple of minutes to highlight how caste is detrimental to the whole society. It's a tall order, I know. But why I call caste a rattlesnake in my title? Outside North and South America, probably rattlesnake is not familiar at all. Its peculiarity is that it has a segmented rattle at the tip of its tail, and it rattles it so fast and furious, emitting a buzz, that its victim is distracted by staring at the rattle, not knowing the impending bite. So caste or race distracts us through its myriad daily manifestations. A killing or a rape in the name of caste not only has its specific victim, but the very act reinfects and reinforces our cognition. So what is caste? It is a system of social stratification. There is no society now or in the past that has no stratification. Even if you isolate a group of people, very homogeneous people, who look alike, speak the same language, and practice the same religion, have the same food habits, and leave them in an island, sooner than later, they will get stratified, partly based on division of labor, but mostly that stratification becomes hierarchical. So is the case with caste. Some are higher, some are lower. The third important feature of caste is it is birth-based. You born into a caste. There's no way you can choose it. And one caste is determined at the birth. So in fact, most social stratifications are hierarchical and birth-based, like race. And notionally at least, caste is a fourfold stratification. Now this is the, but caste is also unique as it is the most ancient of social stratifications because it has had its origins in the Rig Veda, which is one of the oldest religious texts. And there you find this fourfold caste system. Brahmin, who is a priest and endowed with knowledge, supposed to have come out of the head of the Brahma, the creator. Then second is Kshatriya, or you can call a soldier or a warrior, endowed with valor. He comes out of the hand of God, the Brahma. Then the third in the descending order is Vaishya, who is a trader endowed with wealth. Finally, the Shudra, the fourth caste, is an artisan and a service. By the way, if you look at this screen, this slide, you see the similarities between fourfold Rig Veda and the threefold stratification Plato suggested. Well, in case of Plato, it is based on aptitude. But there are claims that caste originally envisaged in the Rig Veda was based on aptitude. I am agnostic on that point, but now for the current situation, it has no relevance. So whether we accept it or not, that's different. But again, these are the fourfold caste system, but the top three castes are called the so-called upper castes. They have more privileges. They are privileged. They are allowed to wear the sacred thread. They enjoy a higher standing during religious ceremonies and sacrifices. This is the fourfold caste system. If you notice, this is not very different from Plato's stratification, as I mentioned. Now, at the end, I mentioned Dalits, the so-called farmer untouchables, and tribals, known as Adivasis, that technically outside the caste system. According to 2011 census, Dalits number about 200 million, and tribals number about 100 million. So 300 million. Technically, they are outside the caste system. That's why the Dalits are also called outcasts, because they are outside the caste system. But again, they also have hundreds of castes. Tribes, certainly they have their own tribes. But if India had only 4 castes, life would have been so easy and simple. But these 4 castes and the Dalits are split into thousands of jatis or subcastes. In India, for example, if you talk about somebody's caste or he or she belongs to a caste, what you actually mean is he belongs to a particular subcaste. For example, Dalit is an umbrella term for 200 million people, and who are split into literally hundreds of subcastes. We have thousands of castes if you take the entire system together. The real complexity is most of these subcastes are endogamous. So for example, you have Shudras. Don't think there is one group and they intermarry and interdine. No. Only subcastes intermarry. And these subcastes are so localized. So the country becomes a collective of literally thousands of communities who don't intermarry. Since they have to marry within that particular subcaste, that subcaste is not found too far away. mostly either you end up marrying within that village or the next village. So this is the impediment to develop any sense of national feeling. Now, you might ask, if this is so complex and it is so bad, why it survived? Caste proved to be very resilient because of these 4 reasons. One, no mobility is allowed. Because if you want to move far away from your village, you will not find a similar caste to marry into. So you are not sure whether you are losing your caste dharma. And low productivity. Why low productivity is needed? Low productivity means no mobility. If the adjoining village or villages are as good or as bad as your village, you have no incentive to move. And culturally, you also don't want to move. And why caste is resilient? The third point is, caste itself is a code. It's a system of rules. You have prohibitions and you have privileges and you have punishments if you transgress. So it is not compatible with the rule of law at all. And the village. So the way I put it is, if you see caste as an organism, it needs some objective conditions to survive and thrive. What are those objective conditions? It needs economic backwardness. That's why no mobility and low productivity, they feed on each other. And it cannot accept rule of law other than the caste rules. The way in modern sense we understand rule of law is, you have certain universals like the equality. All human beings are equal irrespective of your caste or your religion, your gender, and all that. By the way, Indian Constitution is bound by that universal values, but not caste. Because the moment it accepts that, it self-destructs. So these are the 4 conditions that make caste very, very resilient. Now, I treat caste as a malware. I mean, I think it's a modern way of putting it. So you know what a malware? Malware is basically malicious software which is introduced into your PC. It can be harmless, but it can do all kinds of damage. It can make your system slow. It may not allow you to save a file. It may delete your files, or it may access your address book and keep sending funny mails to all your friends. So it can do any number of damages. So whether you are accepting caste as it is presented, or you are a complete critic of caste, you agree that it is an anomaly. It is not supposed to be in this way. That everybody agrees in India. So to that extent, it's a kind of a malware. But over centuries from malware, it has become the program itself. It is not just an app misbehaving, but it's become a whole operating system, if you will. And you find scholars, both Indian and outsiders, who argue that caste has given stability to India. Despite all foreign invasions and hundreds of years of foreign rule, India remained Indian. I don't have time to give all those quotations, but India remained Indian thanks to caste. So the moment India loses caste, it ceases to be India. So that is the kind of, actually I'm giving verbatim quotations of scholars who say that. So now it has become your destiny. It's not some kind of, you don't know whether a part of caste is bad or the whole system is bad, and how are you going to reform it? You are not really sure, but you keep hearing arguments that caste gave India stability for thousands of years, so let us not touch it. It is our destiny. So without caste, it's a rise and theater. Now, if it is that simple, we wouldn't be talking about caste today. Caste has become part of India's social cognition in such a profound way. Whether you mean it or not, you end up perpetuating it. a fascinating study was done a few years back. It's on stereotype, threat, and caste. Two economists from World Bank, Carla Hoff and Priyanka Pandey, went to a small village in Uttar Pradesh in North India. They went to that school. They gave a small test to the students, just solving a maze. For that, they offered a very handsome financial reward. Most students solved it, and there was no caste difference. Lower caste students also did as well. In the second part of the experiment, they took a roll call, simply calling you by your name. That's your first name and your last name, the so-called surnames. In India, most surnames indicate your caste. So in the second part, they took a roll call. Maybe there are 10, 20 students. Each person's name is announced. That man will say is present, sit. In the second part of the experiment, the performance of the lower caste students came down by 23%. So the very realization that one belongs to a lower caste will have such a drastic impact instantaneous. This is how caste reproduces through social cognition. Every day it keeps telling you, you belong to this caste, so these are your responsibilities. If something happens, this is your bad luck because you can't do. You are born into this caste and this is how you are supposed to be. So last 2 minutes, I'll not conclusion, but this is the question I'm raising. My submission is that caste and modernity don't go hand in hand. You have to make a choice. For example, as I mentioned, caste cannot handle mobility because once people start moving helter-skelter, you can't maintain caste. Caste is essentially local. It's not national. It's not even regional. Again, when you think that when I'm saying caste, every time I must be saying subcaste. Subcaste is very local. If I want to change, I can go as a migrant worker or as an employee to other part of country, but I'll go back to my village or my area for marriage. There are intercaste marriages, I'm not denying that is happening in urban areas. And the second is urbanization. A huge city like Brussels or New Delhi or Lisbon cannot maintain caste because you need to maintain spatial differentiation. That is not possible in cities. And the third is rule of law. So without these three, you don't have modernity, whether you call it capitalist modernity or just modernity of any kind. They don't go hand in hand. They are antagonistic to each other. That is my point. But am I leaving you with some kind of very negative comment? There's no hope for the country or there is no hope for me? No. If you see the past 2 centuries trajectory of India, the secular or capitalist modernity is inching forward. Maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. Caste is not as bad as it used to be. In urbanization is increasing now. Almost 50% of India is becoming urban in different definitions. So we are progressing, but not to the extent we would like. So that's my message. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Babu, for this very fascinating lecture you gave us. I think that most of us in Europe, we are very ignorant. We speak a lot about the issue, but we don't know what we are really speaking about. And I think that you increased tremendously our knowledge. And I really am very thankful to your optimism, to the way that you consider that things are going and that they can go further. I think that this raises some questions, of course. But before proceeding to any question, I would like to give now the floor to Dr. Jason Fernandez. He is a researcher on the Center for Research in Anthropology in Lisbon. As I told you, he is now is getting to our webinar from Rome. And he is, from his past and from his present, he is a bit the bridge between Europe and South Asia. And so he's going to give us his perspective, and we are very grateful for having his contribution as well. So please, now the floor is to Dr. Jason Fernandez, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paulo, especially not just for the invitation, but for this very rich and delightful introduction. Thank you also to Hannah. I'd like to echo Dr. Shyam's thanks to Hannah for setting this up, for doing the necessary groundwork. And I'm really glad to follow Dr. Shyam, because I think he set it up quite interestingly. And just to spice things up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that I disagree with him in a certain point, which is to say that I'm going to try and show you in the brief time I have with you how the Indian state has effectively ensured that caste is made national, or at any rate is made statal, that is within the Indian state, and how it operates within an apparent rule of law, right? So I think if Dr. Shyam was positive, I'm going to be more negative. Yeah. So I'd like to begin by suggesting that very often we look at India as this great secular liberal democracy. And in fact, I would argue that it is not a secular liberal democracy, but what I would call a caste polity, right? It is a polity, which is to say a political form that looks like a secular liberal democracy, but its raison d'etre is caste, right? And so the question we now need to move on to is, how do we legally set this up? How do we ensure that that caste is the logic that structures the Indian state? This can be done effectively by privileging the upper caste Hindu as the ideal citizen subject. Now, a lot of work has been done on the citizen subject and how it happens. I'd like to point out to how this is legally instituted at the heart of Indianness. To do this, I would like to draw on my doctoral research. And so we'll have to go to Goa, right? Now, Goa is very often seen as not quite Indian, but in this manner, I think it typifies the Indian case. So in 1987, Konkani, which is one of the predominant languages in Goa, was made the official language of Goa, right? This is typical to a number of the states in the south. The state of Tamil Nadu was created based on language. Andhra Pradesh at the time was based on language. Now, of course, Andhra Pradesh has been bifurcated. Kerala on language, Bombay, Maharashtra on language. So language was the way in which the citizen subject was produced. Who is the ideal citizen subject for each region in India? It happened through language, okay? But languages in South Asia are not innocent. As Dr. Shyam was pointing out, if your name reveals your caste location, language also reveals your caste location, okay? It can reveal if you are Brahmin. It can reveal if you are non-Brahmin. It can reveal which part of the region you come from. So if language is not innocent, then we have to be very attentive to which language is being selected as the official language of the state. And these are things that don't often get specified in the text of the law, but start happening in policy and practice. So in Goa, the form of the language that was adopted as the official language was Konkani in the Nagari script or the Devanagari script, right? And the form in which it was now then pushed within the schools was in the, you could say, dialect or the language idiom of the Hindu Saraswat Brahmin, right? Um, we must bear in mind that in Goa, Konkani is written also in the Roman script, and this is the script that was fairly popular until 1987, in which case the law takes over and then starts pushing the Nagari script, and along with it this Antruzi, which is the dialect of the Brahmin, of the Hindu Brahmin. So all of a sudden now you have elevated into the law the entire support of the law has been placed behind this dialect and form of the Hindu Brahmin. I'd now like to point out to how this begins to start excluding people. For example, when I was doing my field work, I went to this event, and I'm in Goa, and as I'm sure in many other parts of India, you have, or in the world really, you have a little tea party either before or after the event. So I was with this Brahmin gentleman. We were having a conversation, and as we was having this conversation, he tells me about how delighted he was that the Konkani language is now becoming more and more popular. He says that the institution he was associated with used to organize elocution competitions in Konkani. And he said, always the first prize was won by Catholic girls. But he says they spoke Konkani so beautifully, you wouldn't even realize that they were Catholics, right? And which is to say, first, Catholics don't speak the language beautifully. Their Konkani is not beautiful. If it is not beautiful, therefore, if you use this binaristic logic, it is ugly. And beautiful language is embodied by the Hindu Brahmin, by the Saraswat, yeah, this particular jati of Brahmins that dominate in Goa. And bear in mind this word embody, because it's something that's important to come that I will come to in a while. Then in another case, there was this playwright in Goa of the Konkani form, a form called Tiat, which is normally produced by Catholics, but includes all other groups as well, but predominantly Catholic. So this man was telling thing. He says, "See, this is a huge problem with the way in which this official language is being promoted, because in the schools, our children are being taught a language that is not the language that we speak at home, is not the form that we speak at home. And then they learn this language form in the school, and they come back home and they tell us, 'Mummy, Daddy, your language, your Konkani is wrong,' right? So Konkani is spoken in the house, Konkani is spoken in the school, and the child learns in school that his natal environment is wrong. And this is not just in Goa. If you look at North India, which is supposed to be the Hindi speaking belt, huge number of students routinely fail in Hindi or have problems in Hindi because they don't speak Hindi at home. They speak various kinds of regional forms, which are penalized within the state school system, right? So once again, the point I want to make is your domestic life, your natal lifestyle is being is being attacked because of practices in the school. Some years ago, many years ago, before I began my PhD, for the sins of the Goan population, I decided to be a radio jockey. So in the course of the training, I was with a whole number of other young Goans, and we were being given a lecture by this a person who works in the All India Radio. And he was speaking in Konkani. He was speaking in Hindu Konkani, or this kind of this Antruzi, this form. And what I noticed is most of the Catholics were kept quiet, were silent. And then I approached him and said, listen, I understand that I don't speak Konkani very well. Why were you guys, silent? And this girl responded, she said, our Konkani is different now, she says. Which is again another kind of an embarrassment that a number of Catholics have when they of speaking in Konkani in front of Hindus. I'm not saying all Catholics, but especially Catholics who are sensitive to these nuances prefer to avoid speaking Konkani because their Konkani is not authentic Konkani, right? So these are the three scenarios I wanted to place before you. And the issue here is that it's not about language alone, but actually impacts on the body, right? And the body now is not merely the corpus that I hold up before you, but it is also the things that we do with the body, right? So the language that I speak, the manner that I stand, the cultural productions that I do, right? This is all part of the body. And what you are telling me through this elevation of one particular language form is that your body, that is the corpus as well as the productions, are literally untouchable. If the Catholic girl should not sound like a Catholic but sound like a Hindu, the Catholic body therefore is untouchable, right? Um, and there was this example. There was this Catholic priest who was supporting the Konkani establishment. And so when we would make these arguments about, well, Father, why don't you look at the theatre that is produced, the songs is called cantar, or the cantaran that are produced. They're really interesting, and they're saying interesting things. That's culture. He said, culture. What culture do they have? And any non-dominant caste person will know how harsh this attack is, because now you're saying that everything that you produce with your body is useless. Yeah. So what happens when we elevate a Brahmanical form of language into the law is we uphold now the entire Brahmanical order. What we do is we place at the heart of the law a Brahmanical order, and then that sets up this graded hierarchy. The ideal citizen subject is the Brahmin or the Kshatriya or whoever speaks this Brahmanical form of language the best. And then you have all the various jatis of that region neatly below them based on their distance from this Brahmanical ideal. And right at the very bottom, you will have the untouchable. The untouchable, as Ambedkar has pointed out, is fundamental to there can be no the caste system if there's no untouchable, right? And the untouchable is this person whose culture just does not approximate the Brahmanical ideal. In the case of Goa, this untouchable would be the lower caste Catholic, because their Konkani is definitely not like the dominant caste Konkani. Their Konkani is Catholic, so it's nothing like Hindu. The Konkani spoken by various Hindus. So this lower caste Catholic falls at the very bottom of this particular hierarchy. This therefore in India are not citizens as we understand them in a liberal democracy where everyone is not merely theoretically, but practically equal, right? What we have actually are the Brahmin citizen and the untouchable citizen, and various persons within that range. So this, I would argue, is how caste is made national, how caste is inserted into the rule of law, and why we are nowhere close to being rid of this project. On the contrary, the Indian state is a caste state. So I'll end over there. Thank you for your patience. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jason Fernandez. This is an interesting testimony coming out of Goa that gives another perspective on this discussion. I think that we have a lot of questions that have been getting here in the meantime. And it's a bit difficult to get them all together. So we have Anna Madatali, that our SADF associate, that is asking some questions, especially on this issue of the difference of approaches. I would like to introduce something that, well, to me is the most obvious issue when you come from abroad and you come to India. Not only to India, but in India it is very clear. This issue of the arranged marriages. I was just reading a press article from one friend, Tarek Fatah, that was saying, well, the day you end with arranged marriages, the whole of the system will not be kept. And what do you think, Dr. Babu, to what point this issue of mobility that you raised very well, I think it's it's very interesting to understand this system of thousands of subcastes and how the modern mobility questions it. How do you think that this issue of the arranged marriages could change the issue of castes into a different light? That's one question I would like to raise to you. Well, to Dr. Jason Fernandez afterwards, if he could tell us a bit what does he think about the way that different countries and different, even in South Asia, how they integrate the issue of caste, and how does he sees it in a different way? To what extent, for instance, the blasphemy laws that exist in Pakistan, and that, well, one of the most famous case of its appliance was exactly to the issue of a Christian drinking water from a cup that was from Muslims, and so she was making a blasphemy, and she couldn't do. I mean, then she was supposed to have said something inconvenient, but the hard fact was the issue of the drinking of the water. What point don't you think that this is translating a bit the same spirit, although of course within a completely different religious set? So please, Dr. Babu.
Thank you, Paulo. When we think of caste, we think in terms of upper caste and lower caste, Brahmin at the top and the untouchable at the bottom. Dr. Ambedkar introduced this concept of the graded inequality, which is everybody has somebody below him. That includes even the untouchable castes, Dalit castes. They have untouchability within that. The most insidious thing about caste is it makes you so unbelievably small and local. So the arranged marriages come because of that. It's not just upper castes. Dalit subcastes don't marry into each other. This is the rule. You can have exceptions. That how it can end. Now, there is a lot of work by Professor Devesh Kapoor and others. how caste is reproducing itself in, say, NRI communities, non-resident Indians living outside. At least for a couple of generations, more or less, they conform to their caste and religious rules and the behavior. From the third generation onwards, they get integrated into the local culture. So education, urbanization, mobility, these are the things that would make arranged marriages kind of a rare phenomenon that may take a long time, but that is the route for that. So let us not forget, caste is there for everybody and everybody swears by caste. It's not just upper caste and lower caste. Everybody wants to marry within his or her own caste. And mostly it is not by coercion. Let us not think that the arranged marriages are some kind of an atrocity. No. Brides and grooms also accept it. They are much more comfortable with the same subcaste because they speak, it's not just language. When Jason was mentioning about Konkani, I think Konkani is the only South Indian language that is written in the Devanagari script. It's just not just language, even accent matters. So we all want our caste and subcaste. What we don't want is they're becoming, our subcastes becoming instruments of oppression and discrimination. That is the thing. If Portuguese remains Portuguese, no issue. But if that identity becomes an instrument for oppressing others, so that is the case with caste, will never disappear. Arranged marriages would never disappear. People want it. What we want to disappear is the discrimination and violence based on caste. I think this is also a good context for me to just give a clarification to Jason's point that I'm not a lover of caste. What I'm saying is, if you take the trajectory, I mentioned about the 200 years of India's trajectory, caste is becoming less and less oppressive. During my lifetime, during my own research, I saw people who said that they were not allowed to leave their village, Dalits. Now you can't find it. It is very slow. Now there are signs that this thing may be coming back, the way things are happening here. I do understand. But there is a movement forward. It's painfully slow. So that's my answer regarding the arranged marriages.
Thank you very much. For your point of view. Well, regarding accents, Cockney is very well known as a distinct feature of class in the United Kingdom. But even in Portugal, we do have things like that. The way your accent is very much reflexive of your class, and I don't think it's so unique to India, but it is perhaps something, one of the most obvious signs when classes get to see each other's. But now let's go to Dr. Jason Fernandez, and perhaps I would join one question that Anna raised specifically to you. How have you experienced social stratification in Europe? Does it in any way relate to the way in which it is in India - Goa? That's a supplementary question raised fundamentally to you. Please.
Thank you, Paulo. Let me just begin by clarifying that I'm actually in complete agreement with Dr. Shyam. When I said I'm disagreeing, it was just to create this kind of polemical tension to just so whoever is listening to us on the other side of the screen can just kind of sit up and say, what is he saying? So I'm in complete agreement with you. Complete agreement. There's no disagreement. I was only trying to say that, yes, there have been changes to caste or to the way caste oppression is experienced. And once again, I agree with you that we are seeing this coming back. And this is why I think the argument I make is kind of important, that what is happening is, if we begin in 1947, with, or at least in 1950 with the Constitution, an attempt to create the secular liberal republic. Today we are seeing that experiment being undone to create the caste republic, as it were, right? So this is your caution is very well made, and I would like to just underline that.
Jason, can I just disturb you one moment? I'm sorry, but it's a
Yeah,
good
please
context.
go ahead,
In
Dr. Paul.
1950, the same forces that opposed liberal democracy, secular liberal democracy, and who opposed the Constitution of India, saying that it doesn't conform to our tradition, have come to power now.
Thank you very much. Dr. Jason Fernandez, you want to add up to your to what you were saying?
Right. So that was just to clarify that we are actually not in disagreement. You had asked me also the question about how do other countries in South Asia integrate caste, right? I have to confess I'm not an expert on the way caste plays out in Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or Pakistan, but or Nepal for that matter. But I am aware of some details of this blasphemy cases, right? See, the question in Pakistan, it is not simply Christians who are being attacked. The question is what kind of Christian is being attacked under the blasphemy law. And if you scratch that surface, you'll realize that these are Christians who come from untouchable castes, right? It is a misunderstanding, or yes, a misunderstanding that there is no caste in Islam, or at least in South Asian Islam, caste is alive and kicking, even though it may have different forms, but it is definitely alive and kicking. And so you have a number of these untouchable groups that converted to Christianity when the British were still around, and as a result of having a ruler who doesn't commit doesn't commit itself fully to caste for all their sins. The colonial rulers didn't validate caste in the way in which it is being validated today, right? So subsequent to decolonization, you have now this increase, you hitting back at lower caste persons. So the question in Pakistan with Christians is not so much about Christians alone, but Christians plus caste. The way caste plays out in Muslim dominant polities in South Asia is, of course, you have persons who claim descent from the Prophet, the Sayyids. You have various kind of groups that claim the status of Ashraf, right? Now, claiming, as Dr. Shyam had already pointed out, claiming a privilege, seeking to maintain the privilege, we can understand. It is when your assertion of your privilege, and to talk to you as well, Paulo, about accents in Portugal, for example. Yes, certain accents are privileged, but when this privilege becomes a tool to attack me and make my life a living hell, this is something else entirely. There is no way we can get rid of privilege of Iraqis. This is impossible, right? We should try, but when you use your privilege to attack me, this is a complete different category altogether. And I'll use this point to just respond to Hannah. Very often there is this idea that we don't have caste in outside of India. We have, but I would argue that we, in fact, we do. We have caste in in Europe, where at least in portions of Southern Europe that I'm familiar with, you marry within generally your own kind of social group. You dress in a particular way to mark out your social class. And parties, you also party. So this is the standard ideas we have of caste. You dress, eat, commensuality, that is eating, marrying. What is different from the European understanding of caste is that distinguishing European caste from some South Asian would be that the middle class is so strong that you're able to resist any kind of attack. And the kind of attacks that happen based on privilege that happen in South Asia are of a completely different order than what one sees in Europe. In Europe, you can ignore that snob who thinks that his accent is the best, that the way he dresses is the best. In India, you can't. In India, we will kill you. In South Asia, we will kill you, right? And this, I think, is what makes caste in South Asia so problematic and so difficult and so important to deal with. Forgive me for blabbering on, but while I have the mic, I'm going to grab it. I just wanted to make. Oh no, actually I don't. I've made all the points I have to make. I'm sorry. So we could proceed to some other point if that. I'll mute myself now.
Well, thank you very much for your clarification. So, if I did well understand what you were telling us is that the nature of the discrimination might be the same, but the way that it translates into to violence, to discrimination, is completely different. And this is the problem. I think that Dr. Babu made the same point that because he saw this system of castes not to be the one that would be changing. And I think it's very important what you said regarding Pakistan, that it's really the survivance of the caste system more than any religious issue. That's what I gather as essential from what Dr. Jason Fernandez said on this case of this blasphemy laws application episode. This is exactly what I tend to think as well, that this means that there is a society which has rules, and these rules are stronger than even the change of religion. That's the way I see it. That's what my interpretation of these facts as well. And this is very interesting. So now I think that we are approaching the end of our emission. So if we could go to a final roundup, I don't know, Dr. Jason Fernandez, you want to be the next? Please go ahead.
Yes, I just like to make the point, Paulo, that I wouldn't say that changing religion is pointless. The change of religion is a tool that Dalit groups in India have used to great effect. Things may not change entirely, but things do change. It challenges the system. It challenges the state. The state in India, as we know, is committed to ensuring Hindu hegemony by preventing conversions. So it's legally almost impossible or difficult, if not impossible, to change But when they do that in huge numbers, they are saying something. They're telling us something that things do change. If one looks at the way caste operates in Goa among Catholics, one realizes and I'm talking about Goa because Catholics are so dominant. You realize that yes, there is insult based on caste. Yes, there is discrimination based on caste. But there is an opportunity for the lower caste person to hit back rhetorically or discursively, saying what you are doing is wrong. This is not possible if you remain within Hinduism, for example, right? So I would think that the change of religion does change things, and it's not something we should dismiss so easily. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this clarification of yours. Dr. Babu, would you like to come to the issue?
Yeah, I think there is one question for me, which is how do subaltern groups find space in this context? I would say more of the same. India has been a very imperfect liberal democracy, is a very imperfect state. But with all its imperfections, the real transformation in India took place in 1860. That is the year Macaulay's Indian Penal Code came into existence. And that year, once for all, we declared all Indians are equal. You are not going to be treated according to your caste. And the 1950 Constitution of India simply sits on the shoulders of IPC. Anything can go wrong. People may push things backward, but reversing the IPC logic, that universal equality of human beings, no discrimination on gender, no discrimination on caste, religion, I think it will require a big civil war to change that. It's, once the lower castes started enjoying the fruits of equality, they're not going to give that up. At least in places like, say, Western India and Southern India have gone too far on that. So the route for the subalterns is try social reform, go for modern education. Still, doors are open. And keep on blaming the caste or upper castes won't really solve. There need to be some kind of initiative from the communities themselves. And we see that among communities. In a different talk I was mentioning the other day, not all castes are equal. There is one particular caste in Tamil Nadu known as Nadars. 100 years back, they were poorest of the poor, almost similar to Dalits on social standing. But now they are one of the wealthiest communities, upwardly mobile. They are into all kinds of areas of economic activity. So instead of looking at the big picture and thinking that I am helpless, look at the small picture. Each subcaste should look into itself and see what is wrong with it, how it can improve, utilizing the opportunities available. I'm very optimistic on that front. And just one clarification, not clarification, I had to add a point to what Jason said about it's not just Christians, what kind of Christians that are attacked in Pakistan. By the way, that's the same case in India. Most of the time when you talk about attack on Christians, it is not Christians on the West Coast, in Goa and Kerala, who happen to be mostly upper castes. Christians are attacked in, say, southern India, or places like Odisha, where tribals have become Christians. So most of the communal violence is also caste violence against lower castes. So that's my view.
Thank you very much. We are approaching 1 hour of webinar. I think it was a very, very interesting discussion that helped us a lot to clarify. We have just a final question. So perhaps I would, before ending, proceed with this question and then make my concluding remarks. So the question is from Louis Pereira for Dr. Caste Fernandez. What would be your recommendations for changing the future direction of the system in Goa? So a Goan question, please.
There is also a question. Okay.
There's a question for me.
I'll be very quick. I don't know what the recommendation to change the future system would be. I think one, a recognition of the Roman script for Konkani. Dr. Shah pointed out that Konkani is the only South Indian language to be written in Nagari. And this is once again because they desire to present Konkani as an Aryan language and talk. There are a whole lot of racist and casteist assumptions over there. So the recognition of an extant tradition of writing the language in the Roman script, this would be, I think, one good solid way to change the way in which caste is legally enshrined in Goa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, there are some other questions. I'm sorry, Dr. Babu, I will pass you the floor, but there was still more a comment than a question that I'm not seeing who formulated it, but anyway, saying that there should be another session on Pakistan, and this is directed to Dr. Caste Fernandez. And for this session, Dr. Yakub Bankash at Oxford would be a good person to invite on the issue of blasphemy. So that's a suggestion coming directed to Dr. Caste Fernandez, but I think it addresses SADF. So we will take it on board. I just ask Anna to take good note of it and see if we can do something of the sort. And so it's true that Louis Pereira asked for Dr. Babu what recent public policies have been implemented to change the future direction of the caste system. Do you think it will be possible to abolish caste system? You already replied. You said no. But to the issue of recent public policies to change the future direction, you want to say something, please, Dr. Babu?
Actually, there's no specific answer for that. More of the same, once you introduce a set of safeguards for, say, lower castes, like reservations or against violence. So it's an ongoing process. There are setbacks in courts and, in any, when you challenge an entrenched system, there is a backlash and you go forward. So in that way, I can't think of any specific public policy in that direction.
Thank you very much. I think we did really get a very, very good coverage of the issue. I think that Dr. Babu, this example of Tamil Nadu is a very interesting one. In the end of the day, it's always the question and the challenge that is directed to all societies that where there is discrimination. There is discrimination everywhere for one reason or the other, stronger or less strong, the discrimination exists. And there is always two positions to concentrate on the past and the grievances on the past, or to just take them in stock, but use your own powers to change the situation. And apparently there is a good example from Tamil Nadu. I did not know about it, I have to confess, and I'm very thankful to Dr. Babu for this precision and for this very good example. And so let's all of us hope for the best, that there will be a continuum on the basis of this 1860 penal code and the 1950 independence constitution. And let's all of us work together for a better South Asia, for a better India, and for a better Europe, and a better relation between us all. And thank you so much to both of you. And just allow me to say a special greetings to those that are following us in Goa. Goa is something that is telling us a lot, as in Portugal a lot. And let's expect all the best for the future. Thank you very, very much for your participations, and I'm looking forward to the continuation of this sort of debates. Thank you. Bye-bye.